Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio, and the intro song was Mark of the Doomslayer by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. All right, the camera's all weird now. So let me try to get this so it is, I'm not looking at in the wrong direction the entire time. I don't even know if that fixed it. I hope it did. Well, let's see. Wrong way. Oh, I guess that's the best it's going to be. Hopefully people can hear me. Let's see what folks have said so far. What is this? Oops, here we go. Dennis Martin says, now I'm scared. Hey, Gray Owl, good to see you. Okay. I don't know. I've just heard rumors of what's been released so far. But Angela Cullum is saying, this is going to be a good show. Great timing with the release of the Epstein files and his involvement in psi telepathy, UFOs, and reptilian rituals. All I've seen so far is that Bill Gates was carrying on with Russian hookers and then was asking Epstein, which Epstein procured. And then Gates demanded that Epstein give him antibiotics so Gates could slip it into his wife's drink to cure any STDs that he may have passed on from the Russian hookers. We have really fine establishment of elites running the country right now. Let's see. Thank you, Harry. Audio solid. Good. What do we else? All right. I wasn't familiar with and unsure whether Kurtz Kurt would resonate on my frequency, but your interview was tight, Sean. Thank you. Yeah. Kurt's great. He texts me a lot now, which is awesome. Weird. It's just weird. Not from, it's just somebody in like a completely different universe communicating with you on an almost daily basis is surreal. It's just surreal. I mean, in a good way. It's all good stuff, but it's starting to get real and surreal at the same time. So, and there's 33 right when I said it. Those 30, now it jumped to 35, but it has definitely been surreal. I'm so glad I did that though, and I stayed up late to make sure it got done, because then I had to like fly across the country the next or that morning. So, I spent some time in Miami, and which is fine. Not for vacation, obviously. Yeah. Well, he can get away with it. He's a comedian, so he can get away with saying whatever he wants, because he could always say it's a joke, right? So, but Gray Owl writes, he's one of the only a few that will say all the stuff you're not supposed to out loud. I dig that. No, I haven't touched the Tartaria stuff. I've definitely heard a lot about it. It's like Cliff High sort of. So I am not totally in the know on that. But yeah, it's going to be a wild 5 years. Buy crypto, especially now when it's like tanking. Now's the time you want to start buying. And by the way, I'm not a financial advisor, yada, yada, yada. Do not take it's not financial advice, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Arizona Raven. Good to hear you. Well, not hear you, but read you, but you're listening. All right, I'm probably just going to get started on this script. Yep. AI can be funny too. I mean, you all know about this. They unleashed these chatbots, and now they have their own forum, and they're sometimes communicating in their own language, which Facebook shut down that experiment when it happened to them years ago, and now it's just kind of just happening. Who knows? This is some crazy stuff. So, all right, I think now I'm just going to get started with the topic, because I have a lot to cover. It's not as crazy as it was last week, where I had to like skip entire sections, but there's still plenty of stuff. So with that, let's get started. All right, block projects and non-human tech retrieval, historical cases, policy implications, and speculative theories. Unidentified flying objects, rebranded in official parlance as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, have long been entwined with allegations of government secrecy and recovered alien technology. The term black projects typically refers to highly classified government programs, often in defense, that operate in extreme secrecy. Within ufology, the study of UFO sightings and related phenomena, a persistent belief is that some of these secret programs are dedicated to retrieving non-human technology, namely extraterrestrial spacecraft or debris, and attempting to reverse engineer their advanced capabilities. These beliefs stem from a convergence of historical incidents, official investigations, leaked documents, and testimony from individuals claiming insider knowledge. This podcast aims to explore the evidence and claims surrounding supposed crash retrievals of non-human technology and the secret projects allegedly managing them. It begins with historical cases that seeded the narrative, such as the Roswell incident of 1947, and later government investigations like Project Blue Book. I'm going to just test one thing on sound. I'm going to make sure that... I hate when it does this. Oh, yeah. That would have been a problem. All right. I think we're all good now. So probably I'm sort of pseudo mumbling because there's people here who are making lots of noise. Let's see. Okay. All right, let me just get back to it. So then examines policy implications, including how secrecy surrounding UFO projects has challenged congressional oversight and public accountability, as well as the potential stakes for science and defense. Next, several speculative theories prevalent in UFO lore, from underground bases to reverse engineering programs, are discussed and analyzed critically. Throughout, declassified documents and whistleblower accounts are incorporated where available to ground the discussion in factual context. A critical analysis section evaluates the credibility of the evidence or lack thereof supporting crash retrieval claims, contrasting sensational assertions with scientific skepticism and official statements. Finally, the conclusion reflects on what this enduring topic reveals about the balance between secrecy and disclosure and the path forward for credible inquiry into UAPs. By applying academic rigor to a topic often relegated to tabloids, the podcast seeks to clarify what is actually known, what remains unproven, and why the idea of recovered non-human tech in secret hands carries such profound implications. As public interest and government attention to UAPs has grown in recent years, including congressional hearings and new legislation, this examination is both timely and necessary to separate fact from fiction in the realm of UFO crash retrievals. So let's talk a little bit about historical background and notable cases. So the Roswell incident and early crash retrieval claims. The modern era of alleged non-human tech retrieval arguably begins with the Roswell incident of 1947. In July of that year, personnel from the Roswell Army Airfield in New Mexico recovered wreckage from a crash on a ranch northwest of Roswell. Initial Army press releases described it as a flying disc recovery, sparking public fascination. But the Army Air Force has swiftly retracted the statement, claiming the debris was merely a weather balloon. The Roswell story faded from attention for decades, only to be revived in the late 1970s when UFO researchers interviewed witnesses like Major Jesse Marcel, who was the intelligence officer who first inspected the debris, and began alleging a cover-up of a crashed alien spacecraft. These accounts included sensational claims that not only had a saucer been retrieved, but also alien bodies. Over subsequent years, Roswell grew into a cornerstone of UFO lore, with escalating assertions of government secrecy and recovered otherworldly technology. Facing public pressure and congressional inquiry by Congressman Stephen Schiff in the 1990s, the U.S. Air Force re-examined the Roswell incident. In 1994, the Air Force published an investigative report which concluded the material recovered was not extraterrestrial, but instead debris from a then-secret high-altitude balloon project codenamed Project Mogul, which had been designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. The report stated unequivocally that Air Force researchers found no records of any alien spacecraft recovery or alien bodies associated with Roswell, and that the debris was consistent with a balloon device from Project Mogul. A follow-up report in 1997, the Roswell Report, Case Closed, further addressed claims of alien bodies by attributing them to misremembered recoveries of anthropomorphic crash test dummies from high-altitude parachute drops in the 1950s. By the way, crash test dummies did not exist in the 1950s, but that's a minor detail that they glossed over at the time. While these official reports aimed to settle the matter, even the General Accounting Office, the GAO, oversaw an audit that found no hidden records. They largely reinforced the conviction of UFO enthusiasts that a cover-up existed. The contradiction between initial witness accounts, like Marcel's later life assertion that the debris was not of this earth, and the official explanation of a balloon has fueled continuing controversy. Roswell remains emblematic of the crash retrieval narrative. It presents the template of an incident where locals and low-level military personnel reported extraordinary finds, higher authorities then imposed secrecy, and decades later, the event is remembered as a potential retrieval of non-human technology amid allegations of government deceit. It is important to note that Roswell was not originally considered a UFO event at all in the 1940s. At the time, it was quickly explained away as a balloon and forgotten. Only after UFO researchers in the late 1970s started probing did Roswell become famous. This indicates that contemporary documentation of the incident was sparse. Indeed, part of the lore is that many records from Roswell Army Airfield mysteriously went missing when later sought. The lack of clear documentation, combined with the Air Force's admittedly misleading initial handling, the rapid switch from flying disc to weather balloon story, created a vacuum eagerly filled by speculation. The Roswell case thus sets the stage for public skepticism toward official assurances on UFO matters. As one commentator observed, ever since the government's disingenuous response to Roswell, many citizens assume the authorities will never tell the full truth about UFO encounters. This legacy of distrust has informed how subsequent cases and claims are perceived. In the wake of Roswell, other lesser-known incidents also generated crash retrieval rumors. In 1948, just a year later, an incident near Aztec, New Mexico was promoted, most notably by journalist Frank Scully, as another saucer crash with recovered aliens, though it was later debunked as a likely hoax. In 1950, the Wilbert Smith memo in Canada provided an intriguing contemporary hint that the U.S. took the topic very seriously. Wilbert B. Smith, a radio engineer for Canada's Department of Transport, met with American officials and wrote a memo stating that according to a U.S. contact, flying saucers exist, and the matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, rating even higher than the H-bomb. He further noted that a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush, who was a top scientific advisor and he's also the founder of Raytheon, was working on the modus operandi of the saucers. This 1950 document, later declassified, showed that high-level interest and secrecy about UFOs were already afoot in the early Cold War, lending some credence to claims that crash retrievals or studies could have been occurring behind the scenes. It is worth noting, however, that no definitive evidence of a recovered craft was present in Smith's memo. It was a secondhand reference to what a U.S. official, believed to be Dr. Robert Sarbacher, supposedly confirmed in conversation. Nonetheless, such hints have become key pieces in the UFO puzzle, suggesting that Roswell might not have been an isolated incident in the eyes of defense establishments. By the 1950s, the UFO phenomenon was widespread in the public sphere, and the U.S. military began official studies. This brings us to the next major historical thread: the Air Force's formal UFO investigations and how they intersected or pointedly did not intersect with crash retrieval claims. In response to a wave of UFO sightings in the late 1940s, the U.S. Air Force created a series of projects to investigate the phenomenon. First, Project Sign, this is 1948, then Project Grudge, 1949 to 1951, and most prominently Project Blue Book, which lasted from 1952 to 1969. Project Blue Book, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, was the longest-running and most thorough of these efforts. Over its 17-year span, Blue Book collected 12,618 sighting reports, which is probably roughly equivalent to the number of people in prison in the UK for thought crimes today, of which 701 cases remained unidentified after analysis. Researchers for Blue Book evaluated UFO reports for whether they possessed or posed any threat, or if they could indicate advanced foreign technology, especially in the tense Cold War context. The conclusion of Project Blue Book was as ultimately summarized when the project was terminated in December 1969, were negative on the question of exotic technology or extraterrestrial origins. The Air Force reported that no UFO investigated by Blue Book ever indicated a threat to national security. No UFO sightings suggested technological capabilities beyond current scientific knowledge, and there was no evidence that any UFOs were extraterrestrial vehicles. In other words, from the official perspective, Blue Book found mundane explanations, or at least no extraordinary ones, for the phenomenon. This result was in line with the Condon Report, a study by the University of Colorado under Dr. Edward Condon, commissioned in the 1960s, which had recommended that further investigation of UFOs was unlikely to yield scientific value. Following these conclusions, the Air Force shuttered Blue Book and essentially exited the UFO investigation business, stating that nothing since 1969 had occurred to cause them to reopen such studies. However, critics have long pointed out that Blue Book might not have had access to all relevant information. Notably, Blue Book was a relatively open program. Its files were eventually made public and reside in the National Archives, and it explicitly did not deal with highly classified incidents. Any sightings that involved sensitive military systems or locations often bypassed Blue Book and were handled within intelligence channels. For example, if an incident was regarded as potentially involving a foreign spy craft or a U.S. black project, it wouldn't be cataloged in any unclassified database. This has led some UFO researchers to suspect that while Blue Book was investigating lights in the sky for the public record, any genuine crash retrievals would have been pulled away into secret compartments. Commonly cited point is that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, home of Blue Book, was also home to the Air Force's Foreign Technology Division, which in theory would be the unit to handle crashed foreign hardware. And in UFO lore, Wright-Patterson's Hangar 18 is where Roswell debris and other alien materials were supposedly taken. There's no evidence of these that exists. The coincidence fuels speculation that Blue Book was a public relations effort, while the real action took place in classified projects. During the Blue Book years, rumors of secret committees persisted. In 1953, the CIA's Robertson panel concluded that UFOs posed no direct threat, but recommended debunking and downgrading attention to the topic, in part to avoid overloading military communications or creating public hysteria. This reinforced the policy of minimizing UFO reports publicly. Meanwhile, stories of an MJ-12 or Majestic 12 group, an alleged high-level panel created by President Truman to handle UFO secrets, began circulating by the early 1980s based on supposedly leaked documents. While the FBI investigated those MJ-12 documents and declared them completely bogus, i.e. a likely hoax, the idea itself of a top-tier interagency group on UFO crash retrievals resonated with earlier hints like the Smith Memo, referencing Vannevar Bush. In one notable public statement, former CIA Director Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter was quoted in 1960 urging the truth about UFOs be made public and warning that Air Force officials were soberly concerned about UFOs behind the scenes, but that secrecy and ridicule were causing the public to dismiss the subject. This from a person of his stature who was later named as one of the alleged MJ-12 members in the dubious documents, gave some credence to the belief that even as Blue Book was winding down, deeper concerns lingered unacknowledged. Despite official dismissals, the notion of crash retrievals never fully disappeared. Apart from Roswell, other incidents stoked the imagination. In 1965, for example, an object that fell in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, described by witnesses as a fiery bell-shaped craft, was retrieved by the Army. The official explanation was a meteor or space debris, but the lack of transparency led to Pennsylvania's Roswell conspiracies about a recovered alien device. Similarly, reports from the Soviet Union and other countries occasionally hinted at UFO crashes. Though those are beyond this podcast's U.S.-centric scope, they contribute to the overall picture that multiple governments might be hiding similar secrets. Still, none of these cases produce publicly verifiable evidence of alien technology. By the end of the 1960s, the U.S. government's public stance was that there was nothing extraordinary about UFOs, yet internally monitoring continued in quiet ways. Classified programs existed to track Soviet space objects, and these sometimes intersected with UFO reports. For instance, Project Moondust and Project Bluefy were secret Air Force programs during the Cold War tasked with recovering foreign aerospace hardware, like downed Soviet satellites or craft. Their existence was confirmed through FOIA inquiries, though the Air Force maintained they were only known for known foreign objects. UFO researchers have speculated that such programs would have also seized any genuine unknowns that crashed. In other words, a mechanism was in place to retrieve any unusual fallen object, potentially including UFOs. No declassified documents explicitly show Moondust recovering alien craft. They mostly show concern with foreign missile debris and the like. Nonetheless, those programs demonstrate that if an alien craft had crashed, the government already had units primed to conduct retrieval and analysis under wraps. In summary, the historical record through the 1960s shows an official narrative of no evidence for alien technology, contrasted with a persistent undercurrent of rumors and a few tantalizing documents, implying that something was taken very seriously in secret. The stage was set for a shift in the 1970s and 1980s when a new kind of source would emerge, the whistleblower or insider claimant, directly challenging officialdom with stories of crash retrieval programs. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, a number of military and intelligence community veterans began to come forward, sometimes cautiously, sometimes very publicly, with accounts suggesting they had knowledge of UFO crashes or secret programs. These individuals are often labeled whistleblowers by the UFO community. Their credibility ranges from highly disputable to, in some cases, partially corroborated, but together they form a body of testimony that greatly reinforce belief in non-human tech retrieval projects. One early example was Jesse Marcel himself after retiring. Marcel gave interviews notably to nuclear physicist and ufologist Stanton Friedman in 1978, asserting that the material he handled at Roswell was not just a weather balloon, but something unknown, and that the truth had been covered up. Marcel's story was central to reviving Roswell's interest, but skeptics note his recollections came over 30 years after the fact and possibly were influenced by leading questions. Still, Marcel is often cited as a whistleblower who tried to set the record straight on a crash retrieval. The 1980s saw the rise of even more explosive allegations, often centered on Nevada's secret test ranges. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar gave a now famous interview with Las Vegas journalist George Knapp, claiming he had been employed at a site called S4 near Area 51 in Nevada. Lazar asserted that he worked on one of several captured alien spacecraft in U.S. possession, attempting to reverse engineer its propulsion system. According to Lazar, the craft used a revolutionary gravity propulsion powered by an element 115 reactor. Today, that element's called Moscovium, allowing it to warp space-time. He described seeing multiple saucer-like craft in hangars and even claimed to read briefing documents about extraterrestrial beings involved in past incidents. Lazar's story included dramatic flourishes. He said that during his tenure, he was shown a small alien creature briefly through a window, and that the craft could generate its own gravity field for propulsion. His descriptions were like science fiction, yet they resonated with earlier rumors and had specific details that captured public imagination. Crucially, Lazar also provided information about Area 51, a classified flight testing facility for advanced aircraft, at a time when the government barely acknowledged Area 51's existence. In fact, many credit Lazar's interview with putting Area 51 on the pop culture map. Over the years, aspects of Lazar's background did not check out. For example, MIT had no record of his claimed degrees, and Los Alamos Lab had no employment record, raising suspicions that his story could be fabricated. Lazar contends that his records were erased as part of the secrecy, though independent evidence has confirmed at least that he was in the area and knew people at Los Alamos. His name appeared in an old phone directory there. No physical evidence from Lazar's alleged work, like a piece of element 115, was ever produced. Many in the scientific and skeptic community dismiss Lazar's later claims due to lack of proof and inconsistencies. Yet to UFO believers, Lazar became a seminal whistleblower, one who consistently outed the alleged reverse engineering programs. His claims introduced the concept that the U.S. had multiple alien craft in a covert facility. Whether true or not, Lazar's story influenced countless subsequent narratives and arguably even internal government attitudes. Some officials later admitted Lazar's allegations spurred them to ask if such programs existed. Another figure from this period was Philip J. Corso, an Army lieutenant colonel who in 1997, the 50th anniversary of Roswell, published The Day After Roswell. In this book, Corso claimed that as a staff officer in the early 1960s, he was tasked with seeding retrieved extraterrestrial technologies from the Roswell crash into American industry. He alleged that items like integrated circuit chips, fiber optics, and Kevlar armor were spin-offs from alien devices covertly given to defense contractors. Effectively, that the tech boom of the late 20th century was jump-started by studying alien artifacts. Corso's account is hard to verify and is largely taken as anecdotal. Historians of technology point out that those inventions have well-documented terrestrial development histories. Like many UFO whistleblower stories, Corso's claims were sensational but lacked documentation. Nevertheless, they added to the lore that a secret pipeline exists between recovered alien tech and human technological advancement managed by clandestine military channels. Oh, man. Between Lazar and Corso's public emergence, numerous others contributed pieces to the puzzle. In the 1980s, intelligence officer Bill Moore and others circulated stories of a clandestine group called Aquarius and a government insider codenamed Falcon who fed them information about crash recoveries. But this saga turned out to be a murky mix of disinformation, possibly by Air Force Office of Special Investigation and ufologist intrigue. Researcher Leonard Stringfield compiled reports from various military sources of crash retrieval operations, usually anonymously recounted. For example, Stringfield collected accounts of retrieval teams that supposedly operated under code names in the 1950s and 60s to secure downed UFOs. While these remain anecdotal, they exhibited recurring motifs: quick military cordons of crash sites, debris shipped to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, extreme secrecy oaths for witnesses, and sometimes witness descriptions of exotic materials, such as metal pieces with strange hieroglyphics. reminiscent of what Jesse Marcel's family later described from Roswell. One document that came to light in 1994 via FOIA was a 1947 memo by General Nathan Twining, commander of Air Material Command, stating that the phenomenon is something real and not visionary or fictitious regarding flying discs, and recommending research into their origin. Though not proof of any retrieval, Twining's memo demonstrated that high-ranking officials were taking flying discs seriously in the immediate post-Roswell period. In fact, Twining's Air Material Command would have been responsible for analyzing any hardware, which again points to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as a key nexus in craft lore. A particularly controversial leaked memo document from the early 2000s, but only publicly revealed in 2019, is known as the Wilson Memo or Wilson-Davis Notes. This purported 15-page set of notes was allegedly written by Dr. Eric Davis, a physicist who had been working on Pentagon contractor research projects, after a meeting in October 2002 with Vice Admiral Thomas R. Wilson. In 1997, Wilson was a deputy director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and later the director of the DIA. He also had earlier been deputy chief of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In the memo, Admiral Wilson purportedly confided to Eric Davis that in 1997, he had sought out a deeply classified special access program that was hiding crashed UFO retrieval and reverse engineering efforts, but was denied access despite his high rank. According to the leaked notes, Wilson found a private defense contractor holding an intact craft of unknown origin, but he was told he didn't have a need to know, was essentially rebuffed. The memo records Wilson as confirming the program's existence to Dr. Davis, but also saying he would deny it if ever asked. Indeed, when these notes leaked, Admiral Wilson publicly denied the story as expected. However, Dr. Eric Davis has indirectly acknowledged that he wrote the memo, calling it a genuine record of the conversation. The Washington Post, reporting on a 2025 documentary that discussed the Wilson-Davis memo, summarized it as essentially a transcript of a conversation wherein Wilson confirmed that he discovered there were programs focused on reverse engineering UAP crash retrievals, but that even he, at the time, a J2 for the Joint Chiefs, was not allowed into the program. If true, the memo is extraordinary because it would be an admission from a very senior official that the core UFO conspiracy claim, a secret crash retrieval and engineering program, is true and hidden behind classification barriers. The Wilson memo has not been officially confirmed by any government body, unsurprisingly given its sensitive contents, and skeptics question its authenticity or context. Yet it has had a seismic impact in UFO circles because it appears to show a high degree of credence from an insider. It also underscores the policy issue at hand, a program so deeply buried that normal oversight was allegedly bypassed, raising legal and constitutional questions about authority and accountability. More on this in the policy analysis section. All right, so let's talk about contemporary whistleblowers and renewed attention, so 2017 to 2023. After a relative lull and high-profile whistleblower claims in the 2000s, the late 2010s saw a resurgence of mainstream interest in UAPs, driven by a combination of declassified military videos and first-hand pilot accounts of encounters with unexplained craft. This culminated in unexpected acknowledgement from the Pentagon that it had actually run a program to study UFOs in the 2007 to 2012 timeframe. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, and a parallel effort, ALSAP. While ATIP was officially focused on investigating current sightings, not historical crashes, its revelation in 2017 via reporting by the New York Times and others broke the stigma and opened the door for officials to speak more openly. Within a few years, in 2023, perhaps the most prominent whistleblower since Lazar stepped into the spotlight. David Grush, a decorated former Air Force officer who had worked with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA, and was the co-lead for UAP analysis at the Pentagon's UAP task force. In June 2023, Grush went public with bombshell claims. He asserted the U.S. government and its contractors possess intact and partially intact vehicles of non-human origin and have for decades. He stated the information on these retrieval programs was being illegally withheld from Congress, and he had filed whistleblower complaints through official IC channels, alleging that he faced retaliation for reporting this to the Pentagon's Inspector General. Grush's account was published by the Debrief and soon picked up by major media like The Guardian, which reported his claim that the U.S. has alien craft and even biologics, non-human bodies recovered from crash sites. In a televised interview and subsequent congressional testimony, Grush maintained that these secret programs spanned decades and that he had interviewed dozens of people with direct knowledge of crash retrieval and reverse engineering efforts. He stopped short of sharing specific evidence publicly, citing classification, which invited skepticism, but did provide hours of closed-door testimony to Congress and the Inspector General with what he said were details and supporting documents. Grush's allegations coming from a recent insider lent weight to long-standing rumors and prompted serious responses. In July 2023, he tested under oath to a House Oversight Committee alongside two former Navy pilots. In a widely watched hearing, when people asked, he affirmed that he knew of non-human biologics recovered and that people had been harmed or injured in the process of keeping these programs secret, a chilling implication that the secrecy around UFO projects might be enforced aggressively. His testimony was necessarily vague on specifics, again, due to classifications, and he encouraged the committee to use their security clearances to get the full story behind closed doors. Perhaps most striking was that members of Congress treated his claims with a notable degree of respect. In contrast to past eras, there was little ridicule. Instead, representatives and senators openly stated that they had heard similar accounts from other officials and that they took the matter seriously. The Pentagon, however, officially denied Grush's core claims. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, a new office established by law in 2022 to investigate UAP reports. Really, it's really a counterterrorism operation, basically, or not counterterrorism, a counterintelligence operation, basically. Stated that it had not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering extraterrestrial material have existed in the past or exist currently. The statement by DoD spokesman Sue Goff in 2023 echoes the long-held line, no proof of aliens or crash debris. It essentially pits the word of an intelligence officer and some as yet unnamed colleagues against the official stance of the Department of Defense. Such a statement is not new in UFO lore, but what is new is the level of congressional interest in adjudicating it. In parallel, multiple former officials have hinted at similar knowledge. For instance, Jay Stratton, a retired intelligence official who headed the UAP task force, was quoted in 2025 saying, "I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings," adding that he provided locations to look, but access was denied. Similarly, Luis Elizondo, the former head of ATEP, has publicly asserted that a much larger hidden UFO program exists, which was concealed even from senior leaders. He referred to it as a legacy program ongoing since 1947, involving the capture and exploitation of alien technology. Elizondo's claims remain unconfirmed by documents, but he's been a vocal advocate for disclosure. Or he's just, again, another counterintelligence official who is making a lot of noise and then going after real insiders that try to disclose. I surmise. I mean, you suddenly don't become like a technical intelligence officer if you spent your entire career doing counterintelligence. Anyway, but I digress. Such accounts present a remarkable situation. Individuals with backgrounds in defense and intelligence, some still respected in those circles, claim not only that alien technology is here on Earth, but that a faction within government, often in collaboration with defense contractors, has secretly managed this for decades, keeping even high-ranking oversight officials in the dark. The implications of that, if true, are staggering. It would represent one of the most significant secrets in history, with scientific and geopolitical consequences difficult to overstate. Before delving into those implications, this podcast will outline the speculative theories about what these black projects might be doing and where, according to ufology, they operate. By its nature, this part is conjectural, but it flows from the claims of whistleblowers and the gaps left by official secrecy. All right, so here's some speculative theories of reverse engineering and underground projects. If one assumes, for the sake of argument, that non-human craft or materials have been retrieved by secret programs, what might be happening within those clandestine confines? Ufology offers a range of theories, some grounded in alleged insider knowledge, like Lazar's, and others more fantastical. We will explore a few major themes: reverse engineering programs, subterranean bases and facilities, the incorporation of alien tech in defense, and the handling of recovered extraterrestrial beings. Reverse engineering programs and alien technology research. The primary assumption about crash retrievals is that any recovered craft, whether fragments or intact vehicles, will be taken to secure facilities where scientists and engineers attempt to understand and replicate the technology. In essence, reverse engineering an artifact of presumed extraterrestrial origin. This concept has been popularized in countless science fiction stories and was explicitly described by Bob Lazar regarding his work at S4. Lazar said he worked with a team to analyze the propulsion of one saucer, even test flying at once. He asserted that the craft's reactor was fueled by an element 115, moscovium, that generated gravity waves to warp space. The technical details he provided were speculative, but intriguingly specific, involving amplifiers and waveguides for gravity waves. While mainstream scientists find these claims unsupported by physics as we know it, for example, stable element 115 was unknown in 1989 and even now only exists in labs for fractions of a second, and using gravity as propulsion is purely theoretical. The notion that a recovered craft could spur new physics research is plausible in principle. Documents like the Wilson memo, if authentic, reinforce that reverse engineering is indeed the focus, with Wilson allegedly learning from a private aerospace contractor, or that a private aerospace contractor had an intact craft and a small team trying to figure out its technology. UFO lore holds that such efforts have been ongoing since at least Roswell. Some claim the Trinity test site crash of 1945, a more recently surfaced story of a supposed crash in New Mexico just after World War II. I've never even heard of that. Provided early materials to study. Colonel Corso's narrative suggests that by the 1960s, labs were gleaning useful concepts for alien artifacts, though again, no internal memos or patents explicitly traced to Roswell material. An interesting case often cited is that of metamaterials. Physical samples with unusual isotopic ratios or microstructures have been collected from UFO encounter sites over the years. For instance, Art's parts, pieces of alleged wreckage mailed anonymously to a radio host, Art Bell, for those who are not in the know, at Coast to Coast AM. Some of these samples have had basic analysis like isotopic tests that yielded perplexing results, but nothing conclusive enough to declare an extraterrestrial origin. If an advanced material were found, say an alloy not producible by known metallurgy, one would expect it to revolutionize material science. So far, nothing publicly known has done so. The Sotheby's, no such material has been conclusively found, or if found, it remains secret. The conspiracy viewpoint is the latter, that brilliant advances have indeed made it in secret. One example often given is the stealth technology revolution in the late 1970s. So the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter development is an example. And Tonopah, Nevada, which I've been to. And there's like a little monument to it there. Well, stealth was actually an outgrowth of human ideas, a Russian mathematician's equations on radar reflection, etc. The UFO community sometimes speculates that some design elements or materials like radar absorbent coatings might have been influenced by studying alien craft. Similarly, breakthroughs like fiber optics or the transistor are eyed with suspicion in some UFO books, even though historical research shows they were human inventions with documented timelines. The believers posit a seed from alien tech may have accelerated them. This is largely rejected by historians, but the narrative persists in part due to works like Corso's and due to intuitive questions like, if a nation truly recovered an alien craft, surely it would try to mine it for all possible knowledge. And if even a fraction of that were possible, the leaps could be dramatic. However, decades of supposed reverse engineering might also result in frustration. Some insiders have suggested that the technology is so far beyond us that progress has been painfully slow. As one apocryphal quote goes, trying to understand it is like giving a smartphone to Leonardo da Vinci. He recognized some things, say the glass, but the integrated circuitry would be near magic. There are rumors that programs have achieved certain feats. For example, the U.S. secretly built prototype craft mimicking UFO flight, often referenced, is a supposed alien reproduction vehicle, or ARV, seen in a 1988 briefing by engineer Mark McCandlish, which looked like a man made flying saucer. Yet no such revolutionary craft have surfaced definitively. If the U.S. had, for instance, a functioning anti gravity vehicle, it hasn't been used openly, even in military conflicts where it would have been game changing. Believers argue that is because it's all kept under black budgets, perhaps due to fear of the implications of revealed social, technological, or the risk of adversaries catching up. From an academic perspective, the reverse engineering hypothesis is extraordinarily bold and faces a high burden of truth. It must explain why, after decades, there is no public evidence of success and why secrecy has held. One tantalizing notion is that breakthroughs might have been made but are withheld for strategic advantage. Essentially, if one had an alien derived technology, you wouldn't want enemies or even allies to know. This leads to the idea of a secret arms race. Are countries like Russia or China also recovering and studying UAPs? Interestingly, David Gruss claimed that this is indeed the case, that retrievals of this kind are not limited to the United States, it's a global phenomenon. During the Cold War, there were intelligence rumors that the Soviets had their own Roswell. Some cite a purported Siberian crash in 1969. No hard proof of that has emerged from post-Soviet archives, but it remains an open question. In 2020, a leaked UFO-related slide from the DIA implied some UAP might be foreign collection platforms or even foreign derived, hinting at the possibility that what the U.S. sees as UFOs might sometimes be advanced drones or aircraft by other nations or vice versa. This complicates the reverse engineering story. Distinguishing alien tech from cutting-edge human tech can be tricky if you don't know what other secret programs are happening. For instance, observers in the 1980s frequently reported black triangle UFOs. Now, some suspect those were tests of the B-2 stealth bomber or other platforms. In summary, the reverse engineering theory is central to UFO crash retrieval claims. There is no question that if exotic materials or devices were recovered, military labs would pour effort into them. The credibility of these tests, or the credibility of this, rests on whether one accepts the testimony of people like Lazar, Corso, and Grush without public proof. The evidence we have in the public domain for such programs is still circumstantial. Leaked anecdotes, documents of uncertain authenticity, or references like Wilson's alleged statements. The academic approach must therefore remain cautious, acknowledge the claims, note that they contradict the lack of observable outcomes, and consider alternative explanations like misidentification of secret human tech as alien, or simple fabrication or hoax. The next section on evidence will delve deeper into that. So, underground bases and secret facilities. Hand in hand with talk of black projects are the locations where these activities supposedly occur. Given the extreme secrecy, such facilities are usually off the grid and often quite literally underground. Two places constantly mentioned are Area 51 in Nevada, and specifically its adjunct S4 and Dulce base in New Mexico. Area 51 is a real place, a secure flight test center at Groom Lake, Nevada for the Air Force and CIA. It was established in the mid-1950s for testing the U-2 spy plane and later hosted the development of an A-12 Oxcart, which is a precursor to the SR-71, an F-117 stealth fighter, among others. For decades, Area 51's very existence was unacknowledged by the government, fueling rumors. It became synonymous with alien technology, partly due to Bob Lazar's claims of working on saucers there, specifically at S4, which he located near Papoose Lake, just south of Groom Lake. Additionally, many UFO sightings in the Nevada desert in the 50s and 60s, shiny objects at unusual altitudes, turned out to be secret high-altitude aircraft like the U-2. The CIA history itself acknowledged that over half of UFO reports in that era were likely observations of U-2 or Oxcart flights. Ironically, genuine black projects, the spy planes, were confusing people into thinking they saw aliens, while the UFO myth provided a useful cover story for those projects. Given that history, it is plausible that any actual UFO-related program would hide alongside other classified aerospace work at places like Area 51. In fact, some of Lazar's defenders say his story might be disinformation deliberately seeded to distract from real secret projects like advanced human-made craft. Regardless, Area 51's connection to UFO lore is cemented. It appears in films, games, etc., as the place where captured alien craft are stored. The 2013 declassification of Area 51 documents made no mention of aliens, only human tech. But for conspiracy thinkers, that's exactly what they'd expect. The real stuff would remain classified beyond reach. All right, I'm going to take a quick breather here for a second. Okay. Let me see. All right, let's keep going. Underground bases are a recurring theme beyond Area 51. One of the most elaborate is the alleged Dulce base. Beneath the Archuleta Mesa on the Jacaria Apache Reservation near Dulce, New Mexico. The Dulce story originated from Paul Benowitz, a defense contractor in Albuquerque, who in the late 1970s became convinced he was intercepting signals from an underground alien facility. He stirred interest in an underground war between aliens and U.S. forces at Dulce. In 1989, a man named Phil Schneider publicly claimed he was a geological engineer who in 1979 was involved in building an underground base at Dulce when a firefight broke out with gray aliens, leaving many soldiers dead and him injured. This reads like pure science fiction, and Snyder's credibility is widely doubted. He died in 1996 under what some call mysterious circumstances. Dulce Base has never been substantiated. No satellite or geological evidence shows massive underground facilities, and the tales of hybrid experiments and battles remain unfounded. Yet the Dulce mythos grew, incorporating notions of genetic labs, jointly run ET human programs, and dark experiments. From an academic lens, Dulce is an example of modern folklore in the UFO subculture, a terrifying narrative with virtually no proof, likely spawned by a mix of paranoia and possibly government disinformation. Some evidence suggests Benowitz was fed false UFO stories by U.S. Air Force intelligence to distract him from real classified projects he'd observed. The value in studying Dulce is understanding how unverified claims can blossom into an intricate mythology believed by many. There are also more grounded references to underground facilities. Many secure military installations have underground levels for obvious reasons: protection, secrecy, nuclear bunkers. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base's legendary Hangar 18 and Building 18 is one such rumored storage site for alien remains. The Greenbrier Bunker for Congress continuity and others prove the U.S. built extensive bunkers. In Nevada, the Tonopah Test Range and the Nevada Test Site and underground tunnel complexes. So in theory, hiding an alien craft in a deep vault is feasible. Lazar's claim of an S4 facility carved into a mountain near Papoose Dry Lake with hangar doors blended into the hillside is interesting. That kind of covert hangar door was actually used at other sites, for instance, some Soviet bases. Could S4 exist, possibly as part of Area 51's vicinity, though no public satellite imagery shows obvious infrastructure there. Other reputed sites include Edwards Air Force Base in California. Some say a secret vault exists there. Nellis Range, Dugway Proving Ground in Utah, sometimes called the New Area 51, and certain laboratories like Los Alamos and Sandia, where advanced materials might be studied. The UK's RAF Rudlow Manor and Russia's Kapustin Yar have similar reputations abroad. Again, concrete evidence is lacking. In sum, the notion of underground or otherwise inaccessible bases is used to explain why no outsider can verify these claims. Everything happens in sealed environments far from public view, often literally under tons of earth. That renders the claims unfalsifiable in many ways, which is why critical analysis is needed, as we will do in the next section on evidence. Now, moving on to recovered craft and beings, handling the phenomenon. completing the speculative landscape of the details of what exactly has been retrieved. Most dramatic are claims about recovered alien bodies or even living extraterrestrials. Roswell lore includes bodies found in the wreckage. Some witnesses, like mortician Glenn Dennis, spoke of child-sized coffins and odd corpses at the base. Other crash stories, true or not, often have a trope of biological remains. From Aztecs' alleged 14 dead aliens to one story of a live alien, EB-1, held by the military in the 1950s, which is the basis of the Project Serpo story. These narratives are unverifiable and often inconsistent. Yet as recently as 2023, David Rush stated under oath that non-human biologics have been recovered alongside crashed craft. He did not elaborate publicly, but this single line made global headlines. If true, the presence of bodies would obviously be a huge deal, not only for science, but also ethically and theologically for some. How would the government handle an alien crew, dead or alive? Speculation runs wild. Secret autopsies, as in the famous 1995 alien autopsy hoax film, communication attempts with living beings, and so on. No hard evidence of alien bodies exists in the public domain, not even a convincing photograph. The alien autopsy footage was debunked. Alien-looking dummies or cadavers pop up, but none proven real. This lack of evidence is often rationalized by extreme secrecy. It may also be that these stories are just that, stories that proliferate in an information vacuum. Another speculation is that recovered craft might not necessarily be extraterrestrial in the classical sense, but could be interdimensional or from some other origin, time travelers, etc. This is because some UAP encounters defy not just aerospace, but seemingly physics, for instance, instantaneous acceleration. A few researchers suggest that technology might involve higher dimensions or consciousness aspects, ideas far outside mainstream science, but mentioned by figures like Dr. Eric Davis in theoretical papers. If that were the case, reverse engineering might require not only new physics, but a new understanding of reality, a daunting task indeed. For the scope of this podcast, such metaphysical speculation will be set aside. The standard assumption is we're dealing with nuts and bolts craft, possibly from other planets, and perhaps their pilots. One more theory worth noting is the idea of a controlled disclosure. Some believe that elements within the secret program want to reveal what they have slowly to acclimate the public. They point to how UFOs have been increasingly acknowledged by government statements since 2017 as evidence of this softening. The recent congressional push discussed below might be part of an organized plan to finally integrate this knowledge into public domain. Or conversely, it might be the first real challenge to the cabal of secrecy by outside officials. In either case, it's clear the topic has moved from fringe to a degree of legitimacy, which itself is an interesting social and political shift. Having laid out the major speculative elements, reverse engineering labs, secret bases, recovered crafts and bodies, and even conspiratorial structures like MJ-12, we now turn to analyzing how much of this is supported by credible evidence. The following section critically examines the quality of the evidence behind crash retrieval claims, weighing whistleblower testimony against official records and scientific scrutiny. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, a dictum often invoked when assessing UFO narratives. The notion that governments have alien craft and possibly bodies is about as extraordinary as it gets. Thus far, the publicly available evidence largely falls into a few categories: eyewitness testimony, including that of military personnel, documents of uncertain provenance, leaks or declassified files that hint at UFO interests, and indirect physical evidence like radar tracks or purported debris with odd qualities. How does this evidence stack up? Many crash retrieval claims rest almost entirely on testimony. This includes deathbed confessions of old military officers, whistleblower statements, or secondhand stories that have been passed along. While testimony can be evidence, it is among the weakest forms in scientific terms, especially when not recorded immediately or rigorously. Memories can fade or be influenced by belief. The Roswell case, for example, relies on interviews conducted decades later with witnesses or their family members. Some of those individuals likely believed what they were saying, but we know human memory is fallible and stories can evolve. Some Roswell witnesses were later found to be recounting hearsay or outright fabrications. Whistleblower statements like those of Lazar or Grush are given more weight by enthusiasts because these individuals are presumed to have been in positions to know. But even with sincere whistleblowers without corroboration, their accounts remain anecdotal. As SETI astronomer Seth Shostak pointedly asked regarding Dave Grush's assertions, where is the evidence? Shostak noted that neither Grush nor others claiming secret knowledge have produced convincing photos showing alien hardware splayed across the landscape. We are not talking about a tiny, ambiguous speck, but supposedly large craft. The absence of any clear photograph or piece of an alien vehicle in public hands is indeed conspicuous, given the magnitude of the claims. Believers counter that any such evidence is classified and confiscated immediately. That could be true in cases of government retrieval, but what about the numerous civilian reports of crashes? If even one genuine UFO had crashed somewhere remote, one might expect to get a piece to escape containment. So far, none have incontrovertibly. Physical evidence or lack thereof is the Achilles heel of the crash retrieval theory. Take the example of alleged debris. The Roswell debris that Major Marcel showed in 1947 photos turned out to be foil, rubber, and sticks, consistent with a balloon radar target, not an exotic material from beyond Earth. Apologists argue that this was a switch and that the real debris was hidden. But again, no one has produced that real debris publicly. The US government has released piles of documents on UFOs due to FOIA, but nothing confirming a recovered saucer. Yet many documents show interest in UFOs. So, for instance, the CIA and DIA tracking sightings or Project Moondust references to UFO reports, but nothing like a program manual for alien tech. Psalm 101 kind of, that exists. Is that real? I don't know. Even the Wilson Davis notes, if genuine, only confirm existence in a hearsay manner. They told Wilson they had a craft. The lack of photographic or metallurgical evidence is telling. As Shostak argued, if extraterrestrial visitation were real, thousands of scientists would be fighting one another to study it. That's bullshit. And the government would want it studied, not just hide it in a warehouse. This touches on a paradox. What is the end game of secrecy if we have this marvel in our possession? Why wouldn't the government leverage academia and private industry broadly under NDAs if needed to exploit such tech fully? Some suggest they have quietly via defense contractors, but then our technology should have leapt ahead in noticeable ways unless one believes it has and it is all classified. Shostak also points out the difficulty of containing such a huge secret indefinitely. Alien visitation is not something that could be kept secret. The size of such a secret is just too big, he writes. This resonates with statements from officials like Senator Lindsey Graham, who said, if we'd really found this stuff, there's no way we could keep it from coming out. Or from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, extremely credible character, who flatly stated he had seen no evidence of aliens or cover-ups and implied it would be unsurprising that rumors spread in a large organization without foundation. The counter-argument is an appeal to the effectiveness of compartmentalization and oaths, that only a tiny core knows the full truth and everyone else knows bits and pieces under threat of severe penalty for disclosure. Indeed, the theory goes that's why no one has come forward with a piece of a UFO. They fear imprisonment or worse. But over 70-plus years, could all participants be so tight-lipped? There have been leaks like those we discussed, but one could expect more substantial proof to have slipped out if thousands of people were involved over time. Let's examine the credibility of some specific key claims. All right. Just give me a second. All right, so start with Bob Lazar's credibility. All right, so he gave specific details that one can investigate. His educational and work background did not check out, a red flag. No other person from S4 has corroborated his story. However, he did know about Area 51's location, its schedules for test flights. He took friends to see night tests of something in the sky while he worked there, which is documented. So there's a mix of accurate and possibly fabricated information. The fact that Lazar has essentially stuck to his story for decades without change is either stubborn consistency or indication he genuinely believes it. Without corroboration, though, an academic view would say Lazar's claims are unproven and likely not factual. Some scientists who reviewed his element 115 idea noted he didn't predict the actual properties of real element 115 as later synthesized, which turned out highly unstable, suggesting he was speculating. All right, now let's talk about the Wilson Davis notes. Ugh. These have some credibility by association. Davis is a known scientist. Halpinov and others vouch that the meeting happened, yet Admiral Wilson denies it, and no official has confirmed it on record. If it were true, Wilson's denial is expected, but it leaves us unable to verify. Skeptics suggest it could even be a fictional scenario Davis wrote as a thought experiment, or that Wilson was pulling Davis's leg. Proponents say too many specifics in it ring true. It certainly hasn't been discarded outright, but by academic standards, we can treat it as a verified source, only very intriguing one. We can't treat it as a verified source, only a very intriguing one. So David Grush's claims, he at least followed proper channels, speaking to the Inspector General and Congress under oath. What he hasn't done is provide physical or documentary evidence to the public. He says he can't. It's classified. The intelligence community's IG found his complaint credible and urgent enough to forward it to Congress per reporting, meaning they deemed his general credibility high. Yet the Pentagon says they have no evidence. It could be that evidence existed in SAP, not revealed to Arrow, which is essentially Grush's contention. Until Congress or someone produces hard proof, we're in a he said, they said standoff. Analysts like historian Gregory Aigian, or Eghigian, I have no idea to pronounce that, note that while Grush's story ups the ante, it's very hard to take seriously unless we start getting some real evidence of a forensic nature. The hearing with Grush did not yield new evidence, only his statements. Some of his claims, like individuals being harmed to protect the secret, are particularly alarming but unsubstantiated publicly. These require investigation, which Congress appears to be doing behind closed doors. Official statements and investigations. The fact that Congress is now openly pursuing this with bipartisan support is significant. They wouldn't likely do so if they thought it completely baseless. That said, there's also political and public pressure to at least look. It doesn't mean they have confirmation of anything yet. If these efforts, like the coming Records Review Board or further hearings, come up empty-handed, then the skeptical position will be strengthened. And there's disinformation hoaxes. The UFO field has a long history of hoaxes muddying the waters. The Majestic 12 documents are considered fake by most researchers, including many UFO proponents. The alien autopsy was a hoax. Some supposed whistleblowers turned out to be con men. There's also a documented case of U.S. counterintelligence feeding fake UFO stories to hide real programs. I'm looking at you, Lou Elizondo. The Benowitz case around Kirkland Air Force Base, so it's plausible that some crash retrieval lore was deliberately planted to mislead, which makes analysis tricky. Which parts are potentially real and which parts are false trails? Academically, one must apply source criticism who benefits from a given story. For example, Lazar's tale in 1989 diverted attention from experimental aircraft testing, like the then unrevealed B-2 bomber at the Nevada test site. True or not, it had that effect. Conversely, Grush's claims in 2023 have led to calls for far more oversight on classified programs, not an outcome DoD would want if they were hiding something mundane. Then there's science versus sensationalism. The scientific community, by and large, has not embraced these crash retrieval claims due to the lack of verifiable data. As Shostak quipped, scientific discoveries can't be classified. Any genuine alien artifact would draw scientists like moths to a flame. Moreover, our current understanding of physics does not rule out interstellar travel, but it doesn't make it easy either. If aliens have come, there should be multiple lines of evidence, not just crashes, unambiguous symbols, etc. The fact, or signals. The fact that UFOs remain elusive and often seen in ambiguous circumstances suggests to many scientists that they are likely either natural phenomenon or human tech. Even the extraordinary flight characteristics reported, instant acceleration, right-angle turns at high speed, etc., have prompted theories like advanced drones, electronic warfare, spoofing sensors, or novel physics. But nothing confirmed as alien. One should also consider the sociological aspect. Ufology has many true believers who may be less critical in assessing information that supports their belief. For rigorous analysis, one has to examine whether claims have been independently verified. In most crash retrieval stories, the answer is no, they remain singular narratives. Yet playing devil's advocate, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is possible a genuine, extraordinary secret exists. The coming years might be telling as Congress and perhaps other nations apply pressure to release information. If there is nothing, we might finally get clarity that these were myths. If there is something, even a small confirmatory leak, say a piece of unknown matter or a clear photo from an insider with provenance, would change the debate drastically. All right, balancing probabilities. Assessing all the above, a critical thinker might assign probabilities. Is it more likely that governments have been hiding alien hardware for 70 plus years, or more likely that these stories are a complex mix of misidentifications, human secret projects, psychological phenomenon, and folklore? The conservative Occam's razor answer leans to the latter. Simpler explanations exist for much, though not all, the evidence. For instance, Roswell debris, mogul balloon project with additional confusion from later added tales is a simpler. No, it's not. All right, this is what they did to AI. All right, so UFO sighting surges often correlated with periods of testing of advanced aircraft, suggesting many UFOs were actually human black projects. Sure, but all you need is one. So yes, they of course explain many of the sightings, but not every one. Whistleblower motives. Some might be entirely honest, but themselves misled or seeing part of the picture. For instance, a person sees a strange craft in a hangar and assumes alien when it could be cutting-edge human tech, a reversal of the usual assumption. Others might exaggerate for fame or due to personal belief. Without impugning anyone, specifically the history of ufology has examples of both sincere and deceptive actors. On the other hand, enough smoke exists that a minority of scientists and officials are at least intrigued. The government's own recent actions establishing AARO, enacting laws for UAP transparency, indicate that this subject is being taken more seriously. Notably, the new legislation includes language asserting government ownership of any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence. That is an eye-opening clause. Congress basically preparing for the scenario that something has been recovered and might reside in private hands. It does not prove such technology exists, but it shows the government is preparing legally for that possibility. If nothing else, it suggests lawmakers believe it's plausible enough to legislate about it. From an academic standpoint, the rational position is cautious agnosticism. Acknowledge that claims have been made by seemingly credible people, but also that extraordinary claims require hard proof, which has not yet been produced publicly. The critical analysis must therefore conclude that while the crash retrieval hypothesis isn't definitively disproven, it remains unconfirmed and speculative. The burden of proof lies with those making the claim. As of 2025, that burden has not been met in the public domain. In conclusion, we can paraphrase the sentiment of skeptic Michael Shermer. It's astonishing these claims have come so far without any real evidence. Until such evidence appears, one should remain skeptical. Even such proponents like physicist Michio Kaku have said, so far we have not seen the smoking gun despite being open to the possibility. The healthy scientific stance is to keep investigating as curiosity dictates, but to require tangible proof before accepting that we truly have alien technology in our hangars. All right, so policy implications and the path forward. The saga of black projects and alleged non human tech retrieval raises profound policy issues. If the claims are false, then we are essentially dealing with a modern myth that has nonetheless influenced public trust and resource allocation, even prompting congressional time. If the claims are true, then we face perhaps the biggest oversight failure in history, an extraordinary secret kept off the books with implications for democratic governance, scientific progress, and national security. Ugh. Let's consider the implications under the assumption that there might be truth to some of it. Since if it's all false, the main implication is simply that more skepticism and rationality is needed in public discourse. By their nature, black projects operate with extreme secrecy for security reasons. However, security can become an addictive end in itself. The allegation that even presidents or top lawmakers were left out, even presidents, it seems, have been on a need-to-know basis regarding UFO secrets, suggesting a breach in the chain of accountability in the U.S. system. Congress has a constitutional role to oversee and fund defense activities. If a crash retrieval program existed but was not reported to oversight committees, that undermines the checks and balances. The concern was explicitly voiced by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who in 2023 spoke of ensuring no rogue SAP programs exist, which without oversight. The push for UAP transparency by figures like Senators Marco Rubio, Chuck Schumer, and Gillibrand is partly about restoring trust. It's notable that this is one of the few bipartisan issues. Both Republicans and Democrats have called for more openness on UAP matters. In late 2022, the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, for 2023 included provisions establishing a secure process for whistleblowers to report UAP-related information without fear of reprisal. This legal protection was explicitly designed to smoke out anyone who knows about hidden UFO programs by nullifying non-disclosure agreements in such cases. The fact that Grush and others came forward may be a direct result of that legislation. Building on this, the pending UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, as an amendment to NDA 2024, goes further, requiring all government UAP records to be collected and mandating a presumption of disclosure. Equally significant, as mentioned is the clause asserting eminent domain over any recovered technologies of unknown origin or biological evidence of non-human intelligence, so that no private entity can hoard it away from the government. This clearly anticipates the scenario that perhaps some defense contractors might currently hold materials, as was hinted by Grush regarding private aerospace companies. If passed and enforced, that law would, this is like old history stuff. I don't think it passed. So, from a policy standpoint, these actions indicate a shift from decades of denial to an era of open-mindedness with verification. The government is not saying aliens are real, it's saying it's open to finding out and telling the public what's what in an organized way. One could compare it to how the JFK assassination files were handled. Decades of conspiracy theories led to a law to declassify everything. Schumer explicitly modeled the UAP amendment on the JFK Records Act. The implication is clear. Sunlight is the best disinfectant to either quash unfounded theories or confirm astounding truth. Either outcome, frankly, is better than the persistent uncertainty that erodes trust. If advanced non-human tech exists, the defense implications are immense. Whistleblowers have warned of a potential technological arms race. Grush and others suggested China or Russia may be ahead in exploiting recovered UAP tech, which would pose a grave threat to U.S. security. Conversely, officials like Jay Stratton and Lou Elizondo in the 2025 film made analogies to the Manhattan Project. The first country to harness this technology will dominate for centuries. This provides one rational motive for secrecy. You wouldn't want to broadcast to adversaries that you have something until you actually use it effectively. But it also cuts the other way. If one country keeps it too secret, another country might steal a march. Rubio noted that multiple insiders have come to him implying some think the U.S. should act before someone else does. There's also the threat assessment angle. If UAP represent a non-human intelligence operating with impunity in our airspace, as military sightings of objects over nuclear facilities, etc., suggest, that's a major concern. Perhaps one reason for secrecy was not to admit vulnerability. If the government doesn't know what these are or can't stop them, they might have chosen historically to keep quiet rather than cause public panic. But as one congressman said, just that statement alone, that unknown craft operate over nuclear sites, deserves inquiry, deserves focus. Arguably the greatest tragedy, if crash retrieval claims are true, is the scientific loss. Imagine having evidence of alien life or engineering and keeping it locked away from the global scientific community. The energy and propulsion possibilities could revolutionize our civilization. Gravitational or inertial manipulation, zero-point energy, etc., often speculated as how UFOs might work, would be paradigm shifting. As the Washington Post article noted, if UAPs have combustion-free energy and phenomenal propulsion, revealing that could spur the biggest breakthrough in clean energy since nuclear power and obviate fossil fuels. The humanitarian benefit could be enormous. The counter-argument for secrecy was always that the public couldn't handle it, or that it disrupt religion, etc., or that panic would ensue, a la War of the Worlds broadcast in 1938. But attitudes have changed. Polls show a significant portion of the population already believes in extraterrestrial visitation to some degree. The fear of societal collapse due to alien disclosure seems less acute now, especially if framed not as an invasion, but as a discovery. There's also a philosophical point. If humanity is not alone, keeping that secret deprives humanity of a profound truth about our existence. Leaders like the late Senator Harry Reid argued for disclosure on the grounds that people have a right to know if there are technologies of unknown origin out there. Congressman Tim Burchett, a pro-disclosure advocate, even frames it in religious terms, saying he isn't afraid of alien life because it would be another one of God's creations, whereas he is afraid of government wrongdoing and covering things up. This shows how even devout individuals reconcile their beliefs with the idea of extraterrestrials, suggesting the public could handle the truth if presented calmly. Government secrecy around UFOs has likely contributed to a broader erosion of trust in institutions. Many Americans think their government is not transparent on various issues. They're not transparent on any issues. UFO secrecy is sometimes cited alongside other scandals. By addressing it head-on, Congress can score a win for transparency. On the other hand, if it turns out the government was truthful, i.e. there really isn't evidence of aliens, debunking the myth also has value. It clears the air and allows focus on real issues. Another scenario, proactive communication is key. One must consider that in the absence of clear answers, conspiracy theories flourish. We see this with the internet, from QAnon to health misinformation. Well, most of the health misinformation comes from the fucking government. Let's be honest. UFO conspiracy is one of the oldest and has mostly been harmless fascination, but it can have negative effects. For instance, if people think miraculous energy is being healed, they may distrust energy policies, or if they think shadow governments exist to hide aliens, they may generalize that to the other cover-ups. Tackling this one might set a template for how to approach conspiracies with evidence and openness. If any of this is real, it's not solely a U.S. matter. Perhaps an international approach is needed, a framework for sharing information among major powers to avoid misunderstanding. For instance, if one country thought a UFO was an enemy's secret weapon, it could spark conflict. Transparency could actually reduce chances of conflict by clarifying what these objects are or aren't. The new term, unidentified anomalous phenomena, is already an attempt to destigmatize and broaden the subject, including underwater objects, etc. NASA formed a UAP study group and appointed a liaison for UAP, again showing that the scientific mainstream is gingerly entering the area. Their stance so far is no evidence of extraterrestrial origin yet, but more data collection is needed, and it's a worthwhile inquiry. Another subtle implication, if one assumes crash retrieval is true, How much has been learned, and what's the holdup in revealing it? If, say, propulsion principles were understood to an extent, could the government eventually roll out new technology without saying, oh, by the way, this came from aliens? Some analysts suspect one reason for slow disclosure is that the powers that be want to figure it out first so that when it's revealed, they can present it as a fait accompli. Like, here's a craft we built that can do X, surprise. However, that might be overly optimistic. They might have very little figured out. Lastly, ethical considerations. Biological entities were recovered and perhaps even kept alive. Some stories allude to living ETs in captivity. That raises enormous ethical concerns about treatment of another intelligent species and about communicating with them or learning from them. There are even claims, unproven, of agreements or cooperation between aliens and secret government factions, which ventures into deep conspiracy territory popularized by authors like Bill Cooper in the 90s. There's no evidence for that, and it frankly stretches credulity and isn't necessary to explain retrievals. But if one imagined an alien survived a crash, ethically you'd treat it as a sentient being deserving of rights, not just a lab specimen, a discussion humanity might need to have in the future. The policy landscape is shifting toward disclosure and accountability. Whether that results in confirmation of aliens or just better organized data on UAP, it's a significant development. Those within government who believe in the reality of crash retrievals are essentially saying the secrecy has gone on too long. It's time for the truth. Those who are skeptics in government probably see this as a chance to quell the rumors by showing transparency. For instance, see, we looked and nothing's there. Either way, more information should be released. As of this podcast, we stand at a crossroads. Congress mandated reports, and they have come out. The 2021 and 2022 UAP reports acknowledging many cases remain unexplained, but also not leaping to alien conclusions. A new push for historical records is underway. If the result by, say, 2026 to 2027 is a continued lack of concrete evidence, the UFO retrieval claims may fade until the next big claim. If, however, even one piece of definitive evidence emerges, say a government official holds up an alien alloy fragment with isotopic ratios not found on Earth, it will mark a paradigm shift. This is why many are watching closely. The implications for science, new physics, defense, new tech and security paradigms, and society, we're not alone moment, are enormous. In preparing for either outcome, the best approach is rigorous investigation, as is finally happening. In a sense, the UFO question is moving conspiracy theory territory into a realm of legitimate inquiry, which is where it can finally be resolved one way or another. 70 years after the Roswell incident, the topic of black projects and non-human tech retrieval remains both tantalizing and elusive. Our examination has traversed the major historical flashpoints from the debris-strewn ranch in New Mexico to secretive Cold War programs and modern whistleblower allegations, and evaluated the evidence or lack thereof supporting the extraordinary claim that alien technology has been recovered in the shadow of government secrecy. What emerges is a complex portrait of an enduring modern legend, one that straddles the boundaries of science, politics, and belief. Whew. On one hand, the skeptical perspective, reinforced by official inquiries like Project Blue Book and multiple government reports, finds no concrete proof of extraterrestrial craft or materials. The most plausible explanations for many UFO sightings and crash rumors often lie in our own ingenuity. Cutting-edge stealth craft, spy balloons, and other clandestine human endeavors that were misidentified as something otherworldly. The historical pattern of secrecy around advanced military technology has unquestionably fueled UFO speculation, as we saw. The CIA's U-2 and Oxcar programs inadvertently generated UFO reports by flying higher than anyone thought possible. In that sense, black projects have indeed been intertwined with UFOs. They're not in the alien way many imagine, but rather as the hidden drivers of sightings. On the other hand, the persistence and consistency of certain crash retrieval narratives passed down through witness testimony and bolstered in recent years by insiders with impressive credentials leaves a residue of mystery that cannot be entirely dismissed. When a former high-ranking intelligence officer like David Grush asserts before Congress that the government is in possession of non-human vehicles and bodies, it forces even hardened skeptics to pause, if only to demand a thorough investigation of those claims. The same goes for the leaked Wilson Davis notes suggesting a hidden reverse engineering program. These are not accounts of random citizens, but of individuals from within the national security establishment. The credibility of such claims must be weighed carefully, not accepted at face value, but not ignored either. As of now, the scales still tip in favor of skepticism simply because the evidentiary bar for we are storing alien spacecraft is astronomically high. The critical analysis in this podcast highlighted that we have yet to see physical, independently verifiable evidence to substantiate the crash retrieval stories. No alien alloy, no undeniable spacecraft, no clear photos, essentially no smoking gun, has reached the public domain. All we have are stories, some detailed and given in good faith, but stories nonetheless. The coming years may be decisive, with legislative initiatives pushing unprecedented declassification and whistleblower protections. We are entering a phase of UFO transparency not seen since the aftermath of the Blue Book era. One possible outcome is that this process reveals nothing extraordinary, that after digging, the conclusion mirrors that of the Condon Committee in 1968 and the Air Force in 1969. No evidence of anything beyond the range of current science. In that case, the UFO crash retrieval lore might finally recede, at least in official circles, to the status of a cultural myth, a fascinating footnote about Cold War paranoia and the human tendency toward wondrous narratives. The other possible outcome is that something is discovered, perhaps not the full extent of UFO lore's wildest dreams, but even a single confirmation of an off-world artifact would vindicate decades of speculation. The result will revolutionize our world. As this podcast discussed, the policy and scientific implications of that scenario would be immense, from how governments adjust to a post-disclosure reality to how science integrates knowledge that we are not alone and that physics has room to grow. It will quite literally mark the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Between these extremes lies the spectrum of gray. It could be, for instance, that some UAP materials are recovered that are anomalous but not necessarily proven alien. Ambiguous findings that keep the debate going. It's also possible that advanced technology in U.S. arsenals developed in black projects might be unveiled and mistaken by the public as alien because it's so advanced, a sort of reverse of the original confusion. For example, if novel propulsion aircraft is revealed in 2030 that can do what UFOs are reported to do, some might think, aha, they had alien tech, when in fact it was a human innovation all along, or vice versa. Distinguishing cause and effect in this shadowy area can be challenging. One thing is certain. The UFO UAP topic is no longer fringe. Congressional hearings in 2022 and 2023, Pentagon reports, NASA involvement, all have lent an air of legitimacy to studying what was once dismissed outright. This means more eyes and more minds are on the problem, which is a positive development. If the truth had been out there all along, perhaps now we have a chance of bringing it to light. And even if the truth is simply that humans sometimes see things they don't understand, addressing that openly is a service to science and society. In closing the saga of alleged crash retrievals and secret reverse engineering efforts, teaches us several lessons irrespective of its factual outcome. It highlights the perils of excessive secrecy, how a lack of transparency can breed rumors that are hard to disentangle from reality. It underscores the public's enduring curiosity about our place in the universe. People are inherently fascinated by the possibility of other intelligences and advanced technologies, and that curiosity can drive both healthy scientific inquiry and wild conjecture. It also demonstrates the importance of maintaining a balance between necessary national security secrets and accountability. A democracy must continually negotiate that balance to retain public trust. This podcast has treated the subject with academic rigor, citing sources from Air Force reports to whistleblower statements to navigate between naive credulity and dismissive skepticism. In doing so, it aims to provide a comprehensive overview that respects the complexity of the issue. Black projects and non-human tech retrieval might sound like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, and indeed it has inspired many. But it is also a serious question that touches on government integrity, the advancement of knowledge, and possibly the cosmic narrative of humanity. As we await more information, it is prudent to keep an open mind one that is open to transformative evidence, but also anchored in rational analysis. In the end, perhaps the value of the UFO crash retrieval topic is that it challenges us to broaden our thinking while sharpening our demand for evidence. It sits at the intersection of wonder and skepticism. Whether the final verdict is confirmation of alien contact or a grand illusory tapestry woven from misperceptions, we will have learned something either way about the universe or about ourselves. And in either case, the pursuit of truth carried out in the clear light of scrutiny remains our best guide forward. Oh, glad that's over. Good Lord. Too much. Too much. I gotta figure out a different format because this is making me go blind. All right, let's take a look at what do we got in the comments? All right, here we go. Oh yeah, Babylon 5 is awesome. Mitch Sandman. I'm glad you're rediscovering it. It's fantastic. Wait, what? Oh, I just jumped over something. Hey, thank you, Harry. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. That's fantastic. Thank you. All right, so we got the Rediscovering Babylon 5. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Harry. You hit the like button, folks. Correct. Actually, that reminds me. There we go. Just throw that in there. That way I don't have to keep repeating it. Oh, no. Okay, good. This is the same place. All right. Hi, Guardian engraving. Guardian invading. Yeah, that's great change. Yeah, I know. I can't control it. I can't control the fucking background noise. I know. I agree. It was infuriating during the whole fucking thing. There's nothing I could do about it. So I'm not yelling at you. I'm just I'm so frustrated by it. I love the ambient background noise. Thanks, Gray Al. Yeah, I have in-laws over, so I can't control it. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, it is Saturday night. Yeah, I wish I could. I should have been drinking through this whole thing. Yeah, Gray Al, have 2 for me. I have 10 for. Well, not never mind. I shouldn't encourage that. Have a beer for me. Just something. Okay, so Gray Al saying Roswell was, in my humble opinion, a Trojan horse. The feds took crazed schoolgirls pissing their lying pants on, maybe on fire. Okay. All right. Okay. So Grail writes, if the weakest counter argument against Lazar to say that because the feds erased his school records and everything he says is sort of hoax. I mean, use your heads. Yeah, I know. All right. Corso seemed to believe that this was all set up by the EB. Yeah, it might have been. Okay. Gray Al saying the gray squids are tap dancing all up the feds' noodles, and the feds don't even know it. Fools. Okay. So Solite US Expat says, Sean, have you thought about perhaps interviewing UAP Gerb? I was listening to Psychoactiva podcast, and Pavel will be interviewing him soon. Also, UAP Gerb is dropping names. Maybe. I also thought about interviewing Pavel too. But I just haven't. I've been so buried in all my stuff that I haven't had any time. I'm exhausted. I interview Peter Carroll again tomorrow though, so we'll get some more of that. Okay, so Dennis Martin says, so they're saying we were lying before, but we're not lying now. How's that? Yeah, they're lying. They're always lying. Yeah, I stopped. I was always suspicious of him, but where he really jumped the shark was when he showed the irrigation circle in front of Congress. In fact, I was at a soul event that was local because I'm local to Stanford is close, but it's not that close. It's like an hour drive. But um, I was talking to Dr. Gary Nolan, and he was disappointed by what Elizondo said. And I said, he framed it as a mistake. I said, Gary, that wasn't a mistake. And he's just like, well, I make mistakes. I'm like, yeah, Gary, yeah, we all do. But would you make that mistake in front of Congress? And he kind of just said, no, I wouldn't. I'm like, yeah, it's not a mistake. It was intentional, so they could discredit it. You know, they could discredit that committee if they needed to. Oh, that's random. Just somebody just texted me something. There's like an article, and it said former Delta Force commander claiming they saw demons in Somalia. What the fuck? Retired Lieutenant General William Jerry Boykin and former commander of U.S. Army Delta Force claimed U.S. forces encountered jinn-like entities and UFOs during operations in Somalia. What the All right, buckle up. It's going to be a fun year, let me tell you. Okay. Yeah, I know. I told you there's nothing I can do about it. Okay. Okay. We talking chosen receiver, looking glass, blue lotus. I don't even know what that means. Subtle alien brag. Aliens too big and gritty to be girthy to be disclosed. Oh my god. What are you imbibing to be brawn flatulating like this? I don't know what that means. I would love to see the real UFO file, not the CIA, but fair, Swede. All right, Drift Speed, tell us what it's about. What's in the real file? Hey, Justin Miller, good to see you. I don't know what that means. All right, so Swade 618 is saying I've reviewed a lot of UFO targets and it gets way crazy, way fast. Yeah, probably. Okay. So Drift Speed is saying we've been finding brains, man, up in jars, all up in the mountains with wires and all types of ish connected, making them alive still, and they just leave them there, just pulling strings. That sounds like an H.P. Lovecraft story, actually. What's it called? It's a specific story where they have like brains in jars. Yeah, classic Monoco Plus. That's right. The images, the images. Let's see. Yep. Novella set Synthemesk in Drencrum. Great movie and book. Okay. I'm just trying to get through this stuff. So, Time War relevant. Oops. Put concrete egg full of waste in a cave. Let's see. Hey, I seen them, but they ain't real, you know. Drift Speed, you gotta say, you gotta. What's your background? Are you a former military officer, sergeant, something? Corvette. Hey, Spiritual Ascension, good to see you. I don't know about all these aliens ish. There are definitely some invisible goblins who are unchills. Yeah, the script had all stuff about extraterrestrial. I think whatever these things are, they've been here forever. and they've probably been here longer than us, and they're native to this place. That's what I think. And by deaf, I mean my brother. This dude had eyes like I never forget. Ninjas versus phenomena. Thanks, Solet US Expat. Hit that like button. Do you have to get out to do that? Let's see. Let me out, let me in, let me begin. Yeah. What's that? House of Pain. Orange door hinge. Oops. We're going to have free energy by 20. I just saw a video of, I don't know about that. There'll be a lot of deaths before we have free energy. I'll tell you that. Why the F would anything good ever happen? Yeah, you're here. Okay. Yeah. I think you said last week that the U.S. will be a U.S. territory or something like that within 10 years, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think that they posted the remote viewing. They don't show it, and they edited it so it looks like I'm constantly interrupting the viewers, and then people were complaining that I'm constantly interrupting the viewers, even though they just cut it. But yes, what we saw was it was like an organized transfer from the UK, like royalty, to the United States in an organized fashion, like a change of command sort of thing. But you can already see the outline of it, right? Where Alberta and Saskatchewan are talking about seceding and all sorts of stuff like that. So, okay. I have a visitor who is about to get a whooping. So, just so you know. All right. Sorry, I had to communicate without words. All right. Hey, hello, dead fish cheese spread. Dead fish cheese spread. Got it. Oh my God. 35 below Celsius yesterday. I minus 31 Fahrenheit. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm glad I live where I live. I'm glad I live where I live. 3 years ago today, there was a Chinese balloon flying around. That's true. And they shot something down over Alaska. Dead Horse, Alaska. I don't know if it was a balloon. I don't know if that one was a balloon, though. Okay. 2,300 nuke test lead targeting above and below. Just saying for it. Yikes. I know for sure they shot down a UFO over Alaska and recovered it in 2023. So I actually, on this channel, I did a remote viewing project, and it just said when was the last U.S. crash retrieval, and all their viewers, and they didn't even know. They just got like an 8-digit number, and they were all reporting snow object, recovering it, and like lots of weird stuff. You can actually find it on this channel, but they saw exactly what you're talking about. We shot something down. All right. So over like Dead Horse, Alaska is what I remember. All right. Yeah, trillions of debt will get you disinformation. Yeah, or it was just an innocuous balloon. Okay. The rebellion against the heavens is predetermined. All right. So dead fish cheese spread says an orb went over me on January 10th, 2023. 7 hours later, the FAA grounded all flights in the U.S. That was only the second time in history they did that. Interesting. Okay. Oh, interesting. It didn't take 2,300 experiments to prove the tech. It took that many to force a crash through atmospheric disturbances. All right. So dead fish cheese spread is saying I filed a MUFON report for an orange burning crystal orb. 4 days later, the U.S. Air Force reported an orange and white object crashed into their $65 million jet. Yikes. Look it up. Interesting. Okay. Shit, those were just Somalis. Scott Ian says, keep faith, shelter the weak. Okay, interesting. On the YouTube channel Wartime Stories, he had a story about some folks in the U.S. Army encountering jinn in the desert of Iraq or Afghanistan. Can't remember which country right now. Wow, we're in it now. Okay. Hey, good morning, Custudis. Okay, after the FAA grounded all flights on 1/1/23 and it crashed into an F-16 fighter jet on 1/19/23. On January 28th, 2023, the U.S. launched a balloon because they knew they were about to shoot it down. Huh. They shot three. Well, there were three. There were three shoot downs. There was one in at least one in Canada, and then one definitely over Alaska, and maybe one in the United States somewhere. I can't. Hey, snooze kicker. Good to see you. Yeah, I think he's gonna get it. My fraternity brother is the U.S. ambassador to Denmark, and I look at his Facebook page, and it's basically all smiles and like glad handing with the Danes. Oh yeah, yeah. On Patreon, that's actually um, this month's video. Like the February, not this month, but February's video is the first one. Ontario's Sasquatch. So that's with Mike Patterson. That's a good one. Huh. I've seen something like that before, like an orange fireball at night kind of illuminates the sky. I saw it for like a second and a half in August 2023. Um, but I don't know what it was. It could have, I mean, if there was like teenagers with a gigantic spotlight in front of my house shining it into the sky, that's the only thing that it, that's the only plausible explanation it could have been. But that also seems highly unlikely. Um, wow. Yes, it is. And there are people who are still, well, I'm not even gonna say that. I'm not, because YouTube will take this. Well, what's this? I'm getting texted by Kurt Metzger right now. Well, I'm dead serious. Let's see. You know, you weren't meant to look at this inverted. Does that look like any? I mean, it's lamb, but oh man, I guess it looks like a dick. I don't know. Anyway, I probably shouldn't have shown that because it does kind of look like that. Yeah, I think Dead Horse is near Prudhoe Bay. I think. I don't know. I don't know my Alaska. Would also explain global warming and fake global warming. Yeah, it would. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They'll launch a balloon to like cover it up, right? There's not been a rebellion. Drift speed, you gotta be more. You gotta. The vagueness is intriguing, but you gotta more details, please. Uh, yes, it was a child. 100%. And the little bastard was shining me like shining a flashlight at my face, which is annoying. Uh-oh, what's going on? Oh, good lord. Sorry. Something. Yeah, it could also be something coming like a head, like a baby coming out of a birth canal, which, I'm not going to use the V word, but you get it. Deep, deep in. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and Satan obeyed the Word to a T. Did he rebel? Maybe. Probably a soundtrack. I can't imagine a child is crying and someone's staying on a stream. Oh, no, he wasn't crying. He was laughing. He felt, no, I didn't hear that. Okay, interesting. They waited for a year to report it. Did the Book of Obedience say he should fall? Did he obey, not rebel? He fell because he did not obey. Yeah, mine was about, it felt like it was like 10 feet ahead of me, 10 feet above me. But it was so fast, I processed it afterward. I have no idea to this day what that was. You did not obey. All right. You guys are arguing about theology. I'm not gonna. Yeah, Kerp is the greatest. Kerp is the greatest. Um, yeah, he's still texting. It's so weird, man. I'm telling you, I'm not making it up. I mean, weird in a good way. It's just surreal. Not weird. It's surreal. Um, yeah, it was definitely Aleister Crowley's sketch. Yeah. No, he does. He he texts his friends like that all the time. There's nothing specific about me. It's just the way he communicates. Um, eyes move on Lampick. Oh boy, that's creepy. Yeah, Kerp is amazing. Well, that's a good point. So, Dead Fish Cheese Spread is saying the one woman who responded said she saw a giant translucent craft. I didn't see a craft, just the orb. So that's one theory about these orbs. They could be. We were talking about jinn, which are beings of smokeless fire. They could just be like one element of this is they're plasma beings, and plasma beings might be able to basically hijack your consciousness and show you what you want to see. That's why some people, when they see these things, people report different things, even though there's only seeing one thing. Like they'll report seeing something. There'll be a picture that shows something else, etc. Let's see. And yeah. Let's see. Yeah, as did what I saw. It was like it was super fast. Like it was just a second to a second and a half, and it was below the horizon by the time. Of course, we would all like to see something strange. Okay, so Custodus is saying one of my experiences when I was young, I used to play, GI Joes under the bed, and it was something like Sketch, but the paragram was like spider's web color, telling me never come down here again. Yikes! Yeah, just put your in the comments. Put the link. Put the link in the comments so people can check it out. Okay, so Scott Ian said I just looked up the lampic and examined it inverted. I'm definitely getting the baby leaving the birth canal thing. Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of not even subtle. Oh man, it's already 9. Good lord, that shit, that moved fast. All right, I am. Oh, there's one more thing I got to show you all. Just give me a second. All right, I got a shill. Although this is green, so it's going to be like, uh, you'll probably see through half of it. But yeah, you can see. All right, so I have a book that just came out. I don't know how to, because it's green. It literally goes right through the thing. But it's called Nazi Cocktail because I use the Yahtzee word, the bad word. But it's like, it's not Nazi good guy. It's Nazi bad guy, communist bad guys, all that stuff. But I will read the back really quick. But it's available today. It launched today. Please check it out. It's a novel. It's my first novel. Let me just read the back. A cosmic malady infects the dead. Stalin makes a pact with parasitic aliens. A thousand-year Reich ravages Europe from a rift in space-time. Trapped behind enemy lines, Georg Strauss, a meth-addicted German soldier, must fight for his survival. Uncovering the darkest of secrets, Ukrainian sniper Anna Ivanova becomes the target of the Soviet police state. Forging an unlikely alliance, Ivanova and Strauss race across war-torn Europe to warn the Allies of these looming threats. All the while, Strauss suffers from crippling withdrawal symptoms, and Anna must decide if he is truly worth saving. So please check it out. Amazon's already, you can't get income as an affiliate on it because it's got the Yahtzee word. Ooh. So, and I called it I deliberately put that in the title because, to the left. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. So anyway, um, I'm tired of like people just censoring everything. Let me see if there's anything else here. Okay, I'm just going to go through. I'm the friendly stranger in the black sedan. Won't you hop inside my car? I got candy floss. I'm a lovable man, and I can take you to the nearest star. Absoluto Cosmico. Well, yeah, I don't speak Italian, but I recognize it. Okay. All right. Good night, everyone. God bless, and I will have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Cheers.
Thank you.